Researchers gave a group of people two choices. Option A, $50 right now. Option B, $100 in exactly 1 month. Most people chose the $50. Same researchers, same people, different question. Option A, $50 in 12 months. Option B, $100 in 13 months. This time, almost everyone chose the $100. Stop and think about that for a second. Those are logically the same choice. In both cases, you're deciding between $50 now versus $100 30 days later. The math is identical, but something in your brain treats them completely differently. And that one quirk, that single flaw in human decision-making, is quietly running your finances, your health, your career, and your relationships. By the end of this video, you're going to have a name for it, understand exactly why it happens, and walk away with one technique that actually works to fight back against it. Before we go any further, if you've ever made a decision you regretted, told yourself you'd start something tomorrow, or watched a goal slowly disappear into the future, while the present kept winning, this channel is for you. We take one bias or one system per video, explain it clearly, and give you something you can actually use. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. All right, let's get into it. The phenomenon is called hyperbolic discounting. It's one of the most well-documented findings in behavioral economics, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The word hyperbolic doesn't mean dramatic. It refers to the mathematical shape of a curve. Specifically, the way your brain assigns value to things that happen in the future versus things that happen right now. Here's how to picture it. Imagine a graph. On the horizontal axis, time. On the vertical axis, how much your brain values a reward. In a perfectly rational world, that curve would be a smooth, gradual slope downward as time goes on. Economists call this exponential discounting. Your brain values something a little less for every unit of time it's delayed, evenly and consistently. But that is not how your brain actually works. Instead, the curve drops sharply, almost straight down, the moment you compare right now to any future point. Then it levels off and becomes much flatter as you compare 2 points that are both in the future. So the gap between now and 1 month from now feels enormous. But the gap between 12 months from now and 13 months from now feels almost identical. Same 30 days, completely different emotional weight. This is why the $50 now experiment works every time. The moment something is available right now, your brain applies a massive discount to anything that requires you to wait. Even a short wait. Even a wait that is obviously worth it. Now here's the part that makes this interesting. Why? Why would our brains do something so seemingly irrational? The answer is that for most of human history, it wasn't irrational at all. It was the correct strategy. If you were living as a hunter-gatherer on the African savanna 50,000 years ago, taking the food in front of you right now was almost always the smarter move. The future was genuinely uncertain. You might not survive. The food might spoil. Another predator might take it. Someone else in your group might claim it. The future was risky and unknowable in a way that it simply isn't for most of us today. So your brain evolved a powerful now preference, a strong, almost compulsive pull toward immediate rewards. Because that preference kept your ancestors alive. The problem is that your brain didn't get the update that says you're now living in a world with 401ks and gym memberships and long-term career trajectories. You're running ancient survival software in a world that requires completely different decision-making. Let's look at where this shows up in your life. Because once you start seeing it, it's everywhere. Finance first, because it's the most obvious. Hyperbolic discounting is one of the primary reasons people don't save enough for retirement. Chitur, the future version of you, the one who is 65 and needs money, is so distant that your brain essentially treats that person as a stranger. Behavioral economists have actually studied this. When people are shown age-progressed images of themselves, their face digitally aged to look older, they increase their stated willingness to save for retirement. Because suddenly, that future person feels more real, more like you. The distant reward gets less discounted. This same dynamic explains credit card debt. The purchase today feels real and immediate. The interest payments next month and the month after feel abstract and far away. Your brain does the math wrong on purpose. Health is just as loaded with examples. Why do people skip the gym? Because the benefit, being healthier, looking better, and feeling stronger, is weeks or months away. The cost, getting off the couch, putting on shoes, driving there, doing the workout, is right now, immediate and unpleasant. Hyperbolic discounting makes that trade feel like a bad deal even when intellectually you know it isn't. The same thing happens with diet. The pleasure of eating something you enjoy is immediate. The consequences, good or bad, show up gradually over time, so they get heavily discounted. This is also why quitting smoking is so hard. The relief from a cigarette is immediate. The reduced cancer risk from quitting is real but distant. Your ancient brain is not well equipped to choose a 30-year benefit over a 30-second one. Career and procrastination follow the same pattern. The task that's due in 2 weeks feels manageable and distant on Monday. By Thursday, it's still in the future. By Sunday night, suddenly it's now, and it gets done with frantic urgency. This is not laziness. This is hyperbolic discounting. The cost of working on it earlier felt higher than the cost of doing it later, right up until later became now. And most of us have felt this happen to us dozens of times without ever understanding why. Relationships are another place this bites people. Having a hard conversation, addressing something that's bothering you in a relationship, is uncomfortable in the moment. Avoiding it feels fine right now. But the long-term cost of not having that conversation compounds over time. Hyperbolic discounting makes the short-term comfort of avoidance feel more valuable than the long-term health of the relationship. You keep choosing the $50 now. So what do you actually do about it? Because here's the thing. Knowing about a cognitive bias does not automatically fix it. Plenty of people know what confirmation bias is and still fall for it every day. Hyperbolic discounting is deep enough in our wiring that awareness alone isn't enough. You need structural tools. The first and most powerful tool is called a commitment device. A commitment device is when you deliberately restrict your future choices in order to protect yourself from your own future preferences. The classic example is Ulysses in the story of the Sirens. He knew that when his ship passed the Sirens, he would want to steer toward them and die. So he had himself tied to the mast before the sound reached him. He couldn't unmake the decision when the temptation was at its peak. In the real world, commitment devices look like this. Automatic payroll deductions into a retirement account so the money never sits in your checking account where your brain can decide it wants it now. Gym classes you've already paid for and scheduled in advance, so skipping has an immediate cost. Accountability partners who create a real, present consequence for not following through on a future goal. The key insight is that your future self, in the moment of temptation, cannot be trusted to make the decision your current self wants to make. You need to take the decision out of that future self's hands before the temptation arrives. The second technique is implementation intentions. This comes from a large body of research by psychologist Peter Gallwitzer. An implementation intention is a specific if-then plan, and not "I will go to the gym more." That's a vague goal, and vague goals lose to hyperbolic discounting almost every time. Instead, if it is Monday, Wednesday, or Friday and I finish work, then I will put on my gym clothes before I sit down. You're not making a decision in the moment. You're scripting the behavior in advance when the temptation isn't active. Study after study shows this dramatically improves follow-through compared to simple intention setting, because you've moved the decision to a time when your discounting curve is flat. Both actions are in the future, so neither one has the advantage of immediacy. The third technique is a question. One question you can ask yourself anytime now feels overwhelming better than later. Am I choosing this because it's actually better, or because it's just closer? That's it. You're not fighting the impulse. You're not trying to be rational by willpower. You're just labeling what's happening. In many cases, just naming the mechanism is enough to create a small pause, and a small pause is often all you need to make a different decision. Here's the final takeaway. You are not undisciplined. You are not lazy. You do not lack willpower. You have a brain that evolved in a world where taking the immediate reward was the rational strategy. And now you live in a world where almost all the most important outcomes require sustained, consistent investment in a future that feels distant and abstract. That mismatch isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to work with it. Commitment devices, implementation intentions, and the one-question pause. Those are your tools. Pick one this week. Apply it to one decision. See what happens. If this kind of explanation, clear, practical, no fluff, is what you're looking for, subscribe. New video every week, one bias or one system, one thing you can actually use. There's a link in the description to the research papers cited in this video if you want to go deeper. And if you know someone who has ever said, "I'll start Monday," send this to them.